Sorry, I'm gonna record this and I will upload my presentation to YouTube if people want to watch it there. It'll give you a chance to, if you think it's of any interest, to take a look, and it'll also help me in the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a part of a presentation that I did in the past with a fellow by the name of Brian Galbraith. We're presenting again in Ontario, and we may be at the IACP forum in hang on here. Looking for the right screen to share. There we go, my PowerPoint screen. And I'm hoping you all see a PowerPoint screen. And just give me a second and let's... There we go. We're up to where we want to be. So the first thing I'm going to do is you will receive something in your email inbox about me sharing a Google Drive file and also something out of Google Gemini, which is one of the products that I use. I'd invite you to accept that. It will be used later in the presentation about how you can share information and documents. You likely need to have a Gmail account of some kind. They're free. I'll talk more about that as well. But you will find this very, hopefully, I think, very interesting. So I have just sent out the invitation to join my drive, which contains something on somebody called the fake family. So we don't make any assumptions about whether there's been a violation of privacy. I've used the name fake for everybody. And I'm going to send you something called the link to a Google Gem, which is a program that allows you to, it's part of an AI called Gemini. In any event, AI in collaborative practice is what I'm to talk about today, and we're going to talk or focus more in on using it as a tool. So what is artificial intelligence? And that's it's really a question about tools that we can use. There can be all kinds of philosophic discussions about what it means and what it is, but I'm going to deal with it about the tools that started to exist a little over 3 years ago. In November of 2022, ChatGPT 3.5 was released, and that was the earthquake. Since that time, you will have heard a great deal about AI ranging from it's the apocalypse to it's the miracle that will save us all to it's going to collapse the economy to it's the worst or best thing ever. So that's one of the things that you'll be looking at. And it's really a set of tools, and it's a set of very powerful tools. And I think what has happened and why it's so important is it can feel very comfortable. It can feel very much like you're speaking with another human, or at least communicating with another human. And by the way, all of the programs that I'll talk about have audio components where you can have a conversation with an AI about a topic if you want to go along about those topics. Interesting way to kill time when you're on a drive. So they feel very comfortable. They feel very human. They're a form of an advanced hyper search, or at least I think that's what most people use it for. So right now, or in the old days, which are the old days are 3 years and 5 months ago, in the old days, if you wanted to find something, you would do a Google search. You would try to find the right topic and you'd try to get the information. Now, if you're still doing that, you're wasting a lot of time. If you don't have one of the AIs, and they all have free versions, that process gets accelerated a great deal. And at a very basic level, it's the best way in the world to find a recipe. And I'm using that as an example because it's pretty mundane. It's pretty interesting. And it's also, you can talk to it about the recipe. Well, I would like that recipe, but I would like it spicier. Or here are the 3 or 4 things I have to work with. Can you recommend some recipes? Blah, 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 blah. It's an absolutely exceptional holiday planner if you're going to go on a holiday. I just got back from a holiday in Spain, and it was one of the tools that I used to set up that holiday. Right down to, tell me I have 2.5 weeks in Spain. Tell me where to go. And it'll give you a guide. You can ask further questions. And in each of these tools has a dialogue component to it where um, has a dialogue to it, which starts a conversation between you and the device, you and the AI. And again, it's a very exceptionally good holiday planner. How do I get point A to B? It's now doing things, or will be able to do things like book flights if that's what you want to do, or ask you for flight recommendations, etc. So it also now has the ability to do things like go through files, go through your computer if you allow it to, summarize matters, analyze matters, etc. So it's become, I think, very, very quickly, very, very scary and very much having great opportunities. I'm going to do a few quotes that I think are kind of set the mood. One is by Arthur C. Clarke, the fellow who wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So when you're wanting to figure out how these things work, it's like looking under the hood of my car right now. I understand the concept of an internal combustion engine because I took it when I was in school, but I really have no idea how any of it works. The second one, which is important as well, is the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And that's by William Gibson, who is a Canadian American. He was born American and he moved to Canada in the 60s to avoid the Vietnam draft and has been here ever since. So the future is here. All of these tools that I'm going to talk about are here. I'm not talking about anything that's cutting edge or is any way out there. Even if AI development stopped, all of these things are available. All of these things have the opportunity to make you a better lawyer, a better mental health professional, a better um, uh, financial professional, and they all have the opportunity to make us better collaborative as collaborative professionals. So, so I'm going to talk about a few of the main programs. So I've listed four, three in large type, one in small type. First of all, AI is ubiquitous right now. Whenever you do anything, AI is involved. Most everybody uses Microsoft right now. AI is deeply integrated into everything you have in Microsoft. So you're using it whether you'd like to or not. It's deeply integrated into Google. If you do a Google search these days, you have to have it turned on, but it will do the first thing you'll get is the AI answer to your question and websites to link to. But the three main ones that I would say are available right now are Google products. Google Gemini is their chat bot, ChatGPT, which is the original one, and something called Claude, which I'm not as familiar with. I've just started using Claude to see what it's like. So those are the three big ones. They all have different products, but they all are also roughly the same on a bunch of different levels. And I finally talk about I'm not going to really talk about Microsoft Copilot, but if you use uh, Word, you have it. It will help you. It is of great assistance. I did a presentation at the Collaborative Conference in Banff back in November, where we talked about the various different ways you can use Copilot or all of them to assist in your practice. Now, you won't be replaced by AI, but you may be replaced by someone using AI. Let me also talk, and again, if anyone has questions, please let me know. I'm quite interested in anything you may be in. I'd like to have more of a discussion than I would have. I'd like to have more of a discussion with all of you rather than just talking to my computer screen for the next hour. So hopefully we won't go down that road. But it's going to be extremely important and extremely helpful. It's something you may be somewhat afraid of, or you may think it's the best thing in the world. You may have ethical concerns. I'll address that in a second. But it is a valuable tool. The other thing that I can tell you is your clients expect that you will use AI. Your clients will be using it themselves. So, be warned, it's out there. It's being used by everybody. And if you don't get on board this train at some point, you'll be left very far behind and it will show. So I'm going to, hang on, go to my next slide. How can we use artificial intelligence? Improves communications. There's a bunch of ways you can do that. We're at to the point now where it'll set up automatic responses. I know that Bo Atkins in Saskatoon has an AI client acquisition tool. That's not what he would call it. But basically, if you get a cold call from a client, you'll be talking to the AI and it'll take a bunch of information from you. In addition, it can do things like rewrite and improve communications and give instant answers, etc., write responses, do a whole bunch of things. Document analysis and summary. I'm going to demonstrate some of that later where we can do it on a collaborative basis, which I think is one of the keys to the way that we want to work. But it's quite phenomenal. It's been quite phenomenal from the beginning, and it's only got more so. We are information professionals. All of us, we're looking at a lot of information. We all have our points of view, whether it's a legal or financial or mental health question, but we are all information analysts, and this is an incredibly powerful tool on that. Drafting documents, it's really quite interesting about how it can draft clauses. What I've done is, I don't know if any or many of you still use dictation and send it to your staff member. You can use these tools that will kind of give you instant dictation answers, etc. But also if you put something together as I'd like an agreement that says that Bill's going to have the kids on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 8 and but every weekend, and that Mary can give him notice that she can cancel up to 3 of those in a month with 24 hours notice. Please draft a clause. You'll get a clause that's pretty good. So it's an extremely attractive tool. And research and e-discovery, I'm not going to talk so much about that because I think in collaboration, we rarely are getting into those questions. However, e-discovery in terms of collecting and understanding information, can be extremely valuable. I'm going to talk about ethics, but I'm going to do that briefly, and it's confidentiality. So the questions around the ethics of using collaboration are basically twofold. The first one is about collaboration. I'm sorry, is about confidentiality. And the idea is if I put something into a AI, then God knows where it's going to go. And at some point, it could be spit out on the other side of the world, and my client's confidentiality isn't violated, or that Google will know my client's secrets, or Microsoft will, or Amazon will, or ChatGPT will. And how can I protect my clients is what I'm doing at Ethical. And that's a huge stream you'll get out of Law Society people, or about people who don't want to use AI. So it's confidentiality. Um, I, the first thing is, I just want to talk about confidentiality because I go back to the days of paper when that was all that there was around. And that's where our concepts of confidentiality come from. And that's what frames this discussion. And you would get in documents from your clients, bank statements, et cetera. You would make notes and you would send letters, and they'd all be in a filing cabinet. I was going to say locked away, but rarely were they ever locked. The door of the office was locked after hours. Files would remain on desks, but confidentiality is easy to understand at that point. You can't take a look at my papers. However, I should point out that we're in family law, and there's maybe confidentiality vis-a-vis the rest of the world, but there's no confidentiality for the spouse. It's just the opposite. Your clients are expected to produce everything that they're asked to produce, with very limited exceptions. But that's where it came from. Somehow the rest of the world was going to find out about my client's stuff, and then we could just keep it in the office. And as long as I didn't accidentally send it out, there was an issue. By the way, there was a big issue when photocopying started about the propriety of that and all the problems it would cause in the legal profession. The reason I point that out is with the advent of email, which was starts for most people about 1995, and I'd say by 2000 or 2001 is pretty much everybody has an email account and is using it. There were some resistors to it, but it is now to the point where you can't really practice without email. And that really transformed things because we went from paper to electronic bits of information, which I also think we all lost understanding of what was going on. So from the law societies specifically decided email was confidential. By the way, there was a big discussion about that, about whether uh, emails were confidential. Was it a postcard or was it a letter? Were some of the discussions, as weird as that may seem. But I think we had to accept it, did accept it, and it wasn't one of those things that I think the most that fit in at all with the old paper model. And since that time, we've got into networks, we've got into where people can access computers remotely, where we started to store data online, et cetera. So essentially, and then if you hear somebody talking about encryption and all these things happen and they know they have confidentiality, um, I'm rather inclined to call them on that and say, I don't know that you know what you're talking about. Essentially, what has happened is we now rely on the confidentiality of third parties. We rely on the confidentiality of our email suppliers. And the primary ones are Google, Microsoft. That's 95% of the market. So if you send someone an email, you just assume that Microsoft is going to keep it confidential. They tell you how they do it, they will, but you rely on a contractual obligation. What's happened after that was, of course, the whole idea of most of us store backup to copies online or just work online. If you use the Microsoft product, now its name escapes me for the moment, everything is stored online anyway. So we rely on the contract with Microsoft that they're going to keep that confidential. The reason I bring that up is the major AIs. First of all, Microsoft you're paying for, so this applies to Microsoft. But if you're going through Google or you're going through ChatGPT or using Claude, they have roughly the same confidentiality rules, which is if you have a paid version, we guarantee you confidentiality. We're not going to use your documents for training, which seemed to be the issue. And if you're relying on that prospect, or you're relying upon the undertakings of your service provider, if you have a paid version of one of these programs, which have a lot more capability, you also get the guarantee of confidentiality. I use primarily my Google products. There's a whole bunch of them. Google says, listen, this is as confidential as your Gmail. And it's as confidential as my Gmail, and that appears to be appropriate for everything else. So that's the first issue about professionalism is confidentiality. So you can make your own decisions, but you are relying on the same level of security as you rely on for your email. So if you use email, it's hard to justify saying, well, I'll use email and I'll back up my documents online. But boy, that AI stuff, I don't know about that. And then this is some more discussion about that, about the locking up and the birth of the electronic document. Yeah, okay. Just get through that. So that's the first issue. And the second issue is you can't use AI to to make your legal decisions or make your professional financial or professional mental health decisions. It's an aid. It's not a substitution for your own judgment. The American Bar Association calls it human in the loop. There has to be a human in the loop, and there should be a human in the loop. With that said, I heard the Master of the Rolls, the Chief Judge of England, state that he didn't have any issues with AI making judicial decisions in the future. So in any event, using AI, as if you remain in the loop and if you're doing your job, seems appropriate to me. And then the other thing to talk about is technological competence, which is the idea that we're all expected to be technologically competent. It's part of the code of professional conduct. So, and that means you need to look at AI, and quite frankly, you need to use it if it does a better job. The final point that I'll make on all this is client consent. And every retainer I have in every mediation agreement or collaborative agreement or arbitration agreement, I include wording like this. It says I can use artificial intelligence. I have not had anybody even ask a question about it in the last 3 years. Can point to one time where one client said, no, I don't want to use that one tool. And that's been it. So your clients are already familiar with it. They're never going to say no. The only time you get into trouble, I think, is if you have client consent, I don't know how you can get into trouble. There are risks, but as I say, the paid versions, you're okay. And by the way, the paid versions, at least the first layer, are about $30 a month Canadian. Of course, those are tax deductible expenses, so the actual cost to us is less. And then we talk about some other professional duties. So I'm going to talk, just before I get into the types of prompts, I'm going to make reference to a study that was done and just came out, I think in the fall. And it was about whether the use of AI was helpful or not, or did it have an effect on how people negotiated? And what it came down to was what this study says, and I'll try to send you a link for it after we're done, or have Shirley pass that out. It was basically when AI joins the table, how large language models transform negotiations. It was done by a number of academics, and they used 120 senior executives or experienced executives participating in a complex business negotiation. And sometimes they had one side would use AI, sometimes both of them would use AI. And this was a negotiation, this wasn't a court case. And again, you can always be suspect about any study, but it basically said, and it was a buyer-seller situation. If a buyer was using the AI, they achieved 48.2% better result than their human counterparts. The sellers got 40% better, but together, when they were both using it, they got to a better deal in 84% of the time. It was particularly effective in creating value creation, finding win-win situations across multiple issues. And it took people away from that fixed pie bias where we think there's, a dollar, so everybody has to get 50 cents. It was able to look at things like that. And there was another finding, it may be in that in a different paper, that one of the big issues in collaboration in any divorce negotiation is trust. If you just don't trust somebody, then there's a big problem. And if you can't get by that trust thing, it's really hard to get your client. If your client doesn't trust the other side or they don't trust you, it's really hard to move the case beyond that. Sometimes you can force your clients. We're not supposed to force our clients to do anything. But in a collaborative model, one of the bases for collaboration is to build trust. And apparently, the use of AI tools reduces the importance of trust. So people, they may not trust their spouse, lots of good reasons not to trust their spouse. But if they know if AI is being used, that trust issue really doesn't come into play. So it gets over one of the major hurdles we'll have in any negotiation. So that's one thing to look at. Now, I've moved on to types of tools. There's prompts, which is what you'll hear a lot of. Brian, I'll send a link as well to a presentation or to a group of videos that have a big discussion about how to use prompts to do everything from draft emails to compare different kinds of agreements, etc. That it's a pretty fundamental tool. Early in the days of AI, which I find interesting to say because we're talking 3 years, there was something called a prompt engineer, which was some person who had a wonderful talent of drawing up prompts, would come up with their prompts and get paid a lot of money for it. I think that's a profession that came and gone and went in months. You can use prompts to generate prompts, which I find very interesting. Say, I want to ask this question in this situation, and the prompt, can you give me a prompt? So I'm asking the AI to give me a prompt, prompting the AI to give me a prompt, and it'll give me a much more thorough prompt about what I'm after, and then I'll put that in the AI, and it'll come out with a better answer. So it's important if you're asking questions, the more detail, the better. The more detail, the better is basically it. The more questions you ask, etc. It's important. The next level is, and I'm going to get to a demo fairly quickly. The next level is in Google, they're called gems. In ChatGPT, they're called GPT. And Microsoft Copilot, they're called agents. And what they are, they're kind of um, stored or elaborate prompts. And I'm most familiar with gems, but I know this works for GPTs. And what a gem is, and I'll be demonstrating one in a minute, is we've got and that's what I've sent you an invitation to use, is you've got a net question that you will ask all the time. We're all professionals. We're asking the same questions all the time. You're going to be looking at tax returns. You want to know certain things about them. That's a routine task you're going to do. Um, if you want to draw a document, I've got one that deals with dictation, where if I record something on my on anything really, it doesn't have to be any particular device. I just upload it to my dictation thing, and it'll produce an email or draft anyway of an email or a letter or whatever. And I've set up the protocols. I want it drafted this way. I want it put up this way. I want it to say it this. I want the tone to be this. And it takes my raw recordings and it produces a pretty good job. Still requires some editing. I suppose if I worked on my prompt, it would be better. But what a gem is it's a basically you saying, this is how I'd like things done. Now, in a way, that's a form of computer coding or of coding where you're saying, this is how I do things. Every one of us follows a protocol. Every one of us follows a routine. Every one of us follows a an algorithm and how we're supposed to do things. Laws are called codes. We have a criminal code, although we don't have a family law code. It's just the word code isn't there. We have laws that are supposedly like code. You're supposed to implement them, etc. So on a specific area, you state, this is how I want things done. You can provide supporting documents to it and the like. It's an incredibly powerful tool. And this is something, quite frankly, one of the questions you might have is, well, can I just go out and buy something that does everything? No, you can't. It'll be not uh, tailored to what you do and what you need and how you work. It'll be tailored to some other thing, to some other people. And it will be designed for as many people in the world as they can think they can sell it to. So this is a thing that's incredibly powerful for each of us to consider using and to start playing with at the very least if you haven't started. But this is the next level. You move from the prompt, which is a simple question and answer. You can upload documents and say, please review these documents. Please give me outputs. The gems and the GPTs and the agents take that, but they take it to a much higher level. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is Google Notebook LM, which is a method of dealing with information and documents from a case and how you would approach it. And I think that's a very powerful tool. I'll also talk just about just some general tools as well. So let's see what my next slide is. Yeah, here's a metaphor for them. So a spark, a crystal, and a library. Notebook LM is quite different, quite frankly. The prompt is a one-time question, quick edits. By the way, on the use of AI, you can get um, you can get them on your phone, pay for one for your computer. It'll work on your phone. I was just on holidays, and it's great for finding restaurants, booking things, blah, blah, blah. However, we were in any number of museums and old buildings and all those kinds of things. I could just take a picture of something, a picture of a painting, and it would give me, I'd say, tell me about this painting. And I would tell it where it was so it knows from what collection it came from. And it would give me a pretty detailed description of a painting. And you could ask it, well, this scene on the side, what's that about? And most of the time it would have some information. If you went to a major monument of some kind, a cathedral or anything like that, you could take a picture of the altar with 220 pounds of gold in it, and it would give you a really good description of it. So just simple things like that become a huge enhancement to the way we do things. So we have these things, just it's the prompt, it's a spark, ask, it's one-time question and quick edits, and it forgets. The GEM GPTs and agents refine recurring tasks and specific personas. I want you to be a legal assistant. I want you to be a negotiation assistant, etc. It remembers the discussions forever or your instructions forever. And then Notebook LM is a library. This is the one I think that for people who work on files, whether they're collaborative lawyers or any other people, you should use. It's an incredible tool for learning things. And then this talks about a prompt, how to make one. And it's basically garbage in, garbage out. I'm not going to spend any time with that. GEMS, GPTs, and agents. I've got one that helps me draft minutes. It can help analyze problems. It can suggest questions. It can help draft agreements. Now I'm going to show this one to you right here. It's called, this is out of, there's the QR code if you want to try to find it. This is in ChatGPT. If you would have to have a version of ChatGPT, but you can get a free one, and all you need is an email address to get a free one. And Brian has set this up, and it's designed to help collaborative professionals and mediation professionals in situations. So we're going to be dealing with the fake family in a bit, and I'm going to find that, and I'm just going to show you how that works. So this is a tool that you can use during the presentation if you want. I just have to find where I had it set out here. There we go. Okay. Let's get rid of something so I don't have any confidentiality stuff going on here. I'm just going to change my share to, hang on. There we go. So this is, you should have, hang on, I don't think you do. I want to switch my share. Oh, no, I know what I'm doing here. Okay, folks, I'm going to stop the share for a second, and I'm going to reshare because this one is important to get the right one. It's an application window. There, hang on here. It went on. No, I'm still stuck on the PowerPoint presentation. I don't want to be stuck on the PowerPoint presentation. It's not letting me share for some reason. Try again. What Brian's program does is it sets up for you to come up with a question, and I'm not going to put in anything confidential. You just put in, I have a situation where this is my problem, and I would like you to give me some advice or information. And what Brian has done it is just not allowing me to share. I hope someone.
Brad, we can see a
You can
screen.
see the screen for whatever
Yeah, it
reason.
says Collaborative Practice Mediation Guide for Pros at
Okay.
top. Yeah.
Thanks for that. I think I'm the one screwing up here. I know what I'm. Hang on here. Okay, I'm going to just show you how it works. My problem is I'm using two screens and I didn't realize what was going on. Hopefully I do now. Anyway, so this one I'm going to say, Bill, my client is very angry. Well, it doesn't really, you don't really have to spell right for these things too. Over the spouse not letting them see the children on the weekend. They alleged my client was impaired. How can we handle this at the meeting? Okay, so I'm just going to put that prompt in. And it says it's thinking. What Brian has done is he's uploaded, I think, roughly 150 different sources for this. It goes through those sources and assesses what you could possibly do to help. Now, this is not a telling you what to do by any stretch. It is advice about different ways you might handle this. And this is the kind of thing as a collaborative professional or working on a collaborative team would be very helpful when we're talking about collaborate or about AI being an assistant is to each of you brainstorm an answer, but there's ways of brainstorming answers here or thoughts about there. Um, at the meeting, I'd treat this as a safety and process issue first, access dispute second, slow down the temperature. So it gives you a potential statement. Everyone can hear how upsetting the missed weekend was. Let's separate two questions. What happened this weekend? And what plan protects the children and preserves their relationship with both parents going forward? So that's a way that you would want to divert it because that is going to be a high bar or high issue. It goes into do not try to prove the impairment in the room. Don't let it become a trial, but have them talk about what they perceived. Ask for observable facts, not conclusions. Reality test. Um, how are you going to address that? It talks about the Ontario guidelines about how you would deal that. Is this a one-off up? Uh, how do you assess its credibility? Is it a one-off thing in a high conflict situation? Has there constant concerns about impairment? Is this a form of coercive controlling behavior? Um, Possible options. It even goes into options. Neutral exchange, third party present, maybe will advise as to whether the person's impaired or not. Driving, is that the issue? Um, Give a virtual in-time meeting. I would never, actually, quite frankly, I would never have thought about that one as a possible interim option. Should there be makeup time? That's one I would have thought of. Um, Clear process for raising concerns beforehand. A short-term step up or supervised time. Sure, that's an option. I mean, my client may say, I didn't drink anything. Well, fair enough. I believe you. Let's get this started again. And we can, just make sure your brother or sister or someone else is there, isn't there in the pickup, makes it A, harder for the other person to allege you're impaired. And B, it ensures there's a safety factor in there. So if that works for a few times, let's give that a try. Build a concrete clause about what happens if someone is impaired, address the time directly, tighten communication rules, questions you can use at the meeting. So this is just as a free thing you can use right now if you want. If you're sitting in your room you're doing a mediation, you're doing a collaborative case and you're not sure how to handle things, and I've got one coming up where there's a particular attitude of one of the people. It's not malicious, it's not nasty. They just won't agree to one thing ever. And maybe they will never, ever, ever agree to do anything differently. So this is an example of a tool that you can use. And you could do a follow-up. I'm not sure what follow-up should I do. Give me a clause for an agreement that it will be supervised by the client's brother. Well, let's see what it does. I have no idea what's going to happen now. This is not pre-done. Here's a neutral clause. The parties agree that on a temporary without prejudice basis, parenting time with the child shall be supervised by being a parent, brother of the parent, unless the parties agree otherwise. He'll be present for the full duration of the parenting time. It'll occur on these times. If he's unavailable, it's not to proceed unless they agree to an alternate supervisor. Parties agree the temporary is not an admission by either party of any allegation, solely to maintain the children's relationship. It's very nice and neutral language, and it comes up with 2 or 3 exchanges. So those are the kinds of things where you could spend a lot of time drafting. There's I want to say it's Susan Guthrie, who's a fairly well-known American mediator, actually uses AI in her during the course of the meeting. She'll have her computer open, and if they want to come up with, I'm going to stop my share now. Oops, what's going on? There we go. That's what I want. Okay. where she will use AI in the middle of a mediation to say, well, let's talk about options on the house. Let's use that as an example. Give me some options about what could happen about the house. The husband, both parties want it for a period of time. What are different ways we could address it? It'll calculate mortgages for you. Like my one of the clients wants to keep it, they're going to have to pay $450,000. What's the mortgage payment going to be? Pick an based on current rates in Canada today for a 3-year mortgage. It'll come up with an answer which will be more or less right. You'll again have to go to mortgage brokers. That doesn't guarantee anything, but nonetheless, it is very helpful. So that's another way we can go. Now, what I want to do now is demonstrate some different sharing tools that um, are available. Now, I had sent you all a link. I'm not sure how many of you will have opened it, but to a family known as the fake family. And what I want to do now is I want to show you 3 different ways that you can share files. So one of the things that collaboration would work very well for is sharing of files, sharing of information in a collaborative case. Why wouldn't we all share common file information? And you just simply create the fake family should be in front of you right now. There we go. Now I see what I was doing wrong. So we've got the fake family, and this is a Google Drive file. I suspect you could do the same in Microsoft's version of savings, but I just set up a file here for Taylor fake, et cetera, et cetera. And if you have a paid version, if everyone is using this, you can upload files to it. It's a very simple file sharing tool. What you see on the right, you have to pay for. You have to be part of the Gemini paid versions. But it can do things for me like summarize cases for me. So I could say, tell me about the children in the bottom corner, about the children. What awful spelling. Let's see what it does. So it's going to tell me something about the children. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong case. I got to get that one off the screen right away. Um, I don't know how that happened. Oh, I think I know what happened. There's an example of why you don't want to use this, and you have to be cautious about using it in a public setting. But I have all these things on here. It talks up top about the fake family. Well, let's see if it's the fake family. It gives you the relationship details about the fake family. The children are Riley and Quinn fake. Its date of cohabitation is there, date of marriage is there, date of separation is there, summary of assets is there. This is all based on the documents that I had uploaded. If you have a case that's in court, you take the financial statements and you conduct run all kinds of inquiries. This is a good way to share documents. You'll see little numbers. Those are footnotes. It'll pull up the actual document it was referring to. There's an executive summary on them. So this is one way collaborative professionals could use AI, is you simply have all the documents in a common place and you use the tools available to make inquiries and find out information. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate something called Notebook LM. Oh, sorry, no, I'm going to demonstrate Google Gemini. And I've got something called the Fake Family Gem. I'm going to close this. There we go. So what I've done is I've hooked up this Gemini AI. I've hooked it up to the fake family. It's the fake family gem. I can share it, which I've shared it with you. And what it's going to do is ask questions or answer questions that I put onto it about the fake family. So what do we want to know? What do the parents do for a living? What do they make? And what caused the separation? So it's kind of a triple question. Caused the separation. Let's see what happens. It's going through those documents. Okay, this is a good example of why not to do live demos because that has nothing, this is all made up. That has nothing to do with the fake family at all. So that isn't working, and I'm not entirely sure why. So there's a good reason um, not to use this case. And by the way, this has nothing to do with a real case of mine because I have no cases involving people of those names. So I have no idea where that came from. And that's a good example of showing where something doesn't work. This one will. This is the fake family in something called ChatGPT, in something called Notebook LM. This is a Google product. What you can do with it is you can upload up to 300 different documents. Um, I'll go back to a different layer to tell you about this. I'm going to change my share now to my PowerPoint slide. There we go. It's on Notebook LM. You can upload documents to it, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, PDFs, Google Docs, sheet slides, audio files, etc. You can link websites, YouTube videos. You can put up to 300 files. It's a bit deceptive too because I will, if you ever got 300 files, you can combine them and it'll still work. Basically, it can handle up to 30 million pages of information. Um, It can become the case Bible. It accesses data, it drafts agreements, and it'll do conflict analysis for you. So you can do this on your own. If you're in mediation, you can also deal with It's somewhat difficult to share for a variety of reasons, but it can be worked with together to be your case Bible. If you're doing a mediation, this is certainly extremely helpful. I'm just going to demonstrate it with the fake family. This time, there we go. So you should have the fake family in front of you, and you do, okay? So basically, let me explain the columns. The column on the left is the sources. It's very easy to add sources. You just hit add sources. You'll see you
Brad, we
can,
still have the notebook one in front of us.
okay, sorry about that.
No, that's
Oh,
okay.
that's because I haven't, how about now?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, perfect. Let me start again. So there's the three columns. This is just a start. So you can add, so you upload as many sources as you want. Basically, there's workarounds if you ever got over 300 files, which is unlikely to happen. You can put pleadings on a case. If you're doing litigation still, this is also a great tool. Get your client's consent, but I don't think it's that hard. You can get web sources. That really isn't that applicable to us. Upload files, websites, or Drive or copy texts. So I've been using Drive here. And I've got a bunch of things on there. And there's the fake family. So I go to the fake family and it has all their file documents. I've already uploaded all of those, so I don't need to upload anymore. If there was a new file come in, I could upload it. It starts off with a brief description in the middle one. This is the chat thing. And there, tell us about the fake family. Tell us about the family, about the family. See what it does for us. By the way, when I do some mediations or I'm taking a file over in the middle of a case, this is incredibly helpful to get up to speed quickly. And it's going through, it says defining family context. It's telling us about the family, composing factual report. They separated couple. They've got two children, Riley and Quinn. Pat is the primary earner. He frequently travels. He made 175,000. Taylor is a CPA. By the way, this is very sexist because nowhere in my documents to identify whether Pat or Taylor is male or female. It adds in there that Taylor is female. So it goes through a pretty good discussion about the co-parenting relationship and the problems. I'm going to say, tell me about their son. And it's coming up with, it takes a little bit of time, but these are seconds, not whatever, not any longer than that. And Riley, he was born, he's nearly 13. It's funny because Riley and Quinn are both names that could be of either gender. And I asked about the son and it put both children's names out and I found him neat. But it tells you about Riley. She's 13 years old. She's excellent at school. She's involved in hockey, the schedule of the hockey season, the impact on the family. And then we talk about Quinn. Quinn has autism. He's enrolled in a special education program. It's not difficult to access. Um, Therapy costs about what they are. And it says impact on the family. Quinn's diagnosis directly impact the family employment dynamic. As Quinn's special needs became apparent, Taylor gradually reduced her working hours in the family business to manage daily logistics and care, and now does not work in the business at all. Taylor continues to manage Quinn's special needs. So again, just from a basic information point of view, and you could add in more questions about here are the dynamics. One other tool that I've been using a lot is on if I do a when I do a mediation or collaborative session, if it's online, I'll use a program called Otter AI that will create a transcript and a summary of it. If I'm in person, I'll actually record it and go through Otter. This will record, or if everyone's on side to do it, you'll have all the information from all of the meetings and it can reference things. For example, you'll see a bunch of numbers on the screen, and what they are is they're the footnotes. It's where they got that information. And the thing about Notebook LM, one of the concerns about AI generally is hallucinations. It'll gather information that isn't important. This is like an AI that only looks at your client file materials. That's all that it does. Finally, there's Studio, which is quite frankly, it's very interesting. So what I did is you'll see reports, and I asked for a briefing report, but it does different things. Actually, settlement proposal. I'm going to ask it to come up with a settlement proposal. It'll come up with that in a minute. But asked it to generate a briefing document, and it came up the fake family separation. It gives an executive salary or a summary. There's an income disparity and an imputation issue. There's corporate issues. There's an asset division. There's $2.5 million in property, and $800,000 in debt. Parenting friction. There's some parenting friction. They entered in a collaborative mediation process. It's got the details of the people. It's the children's issues, current parenting structures, financial profiles. It just did this in a couple of minutes. The basic assets, and the mediation process, core values, status of initial session. I did a fake meeting with the couple, and it has some comments on that. Oops, where are we at? Let's go back to LM. So we'll see what comes up with on the potential settlement offer. It also came up with, and again, I just asked it to do this. This is a far better PowerPoint presentation than I could ever do, but it developed this PowerPoint. Again, I'm not sure how you would ever use this in a case, but there are ways that it would. I actually, in a different life or a different demo, we came up with a pretty good video of how you decide how to value a business. But this gives some basic information about the parties, about their backgrounds, the child expenses for Riley, the issues around Quinn, the co-parenting, friction point. There was an issue in the materials about a problem. Income trajectory, that's how their income went the last 3 years. Top line, $1 million in revenue. This is talking about the family business. And then this is a really interesting waterfall diagram of the family assets. And why professional valuations matter, the 1 million pension, defined contribution, defined benefits, hybrid plan, the friction point radar, Pat's frequent business travel, his new partner, the income imputation, and the hockey schedule are all issues. And mediation framework, it gave a bunch of information. Again, it does these things, and they may or may not be helpful, but it gives us a different way to communicate with people. So let's see what it did with settlement proposal. This is a one on me. So I asked it to generate some settlement proposals. Um, the, well, this is new. This will give you settlement advice clearly. Um, talking about the relationship, how long they were together. That's pretty important. Special needs protocols for Quinn, Riley's questions, income analysis and support. It's not giving me any answers. I did include some child view calculations in this, and it comes up with some other stuff. Training solutions requires appraisal, estimated net worth, corporate equity, proposed terms of settlement. Um, in any event, it came up with some very interesting results. So I've done a lot of talking. When it comes to what I'm talking about, or why all of this is important to all of us as professionals and as collaborative professionals, is there's lots more ways for us to interact. There's far more effective ways for us to negotiate. Um, there's far more things we can do. And how can we use these tools to work together? We can share documents. There are ways to share notebook LMs. We can come up with brainstorming where we have additional actor in the AI in terms of how we're going to do things. A drafter of documents that can perhaps equalize the burden. It helps us get better prepared for our cases. It can give you on-demand responses to things that matter. It can help reframe arguments, or when you're trying to understand what's important to your client, what their interests are, you can get an assistance there. Um, it can assist in the understanding of the data in a very dramatic way. So overall, it has all kinds of potential to help us. Um, it can depersonalize matter, which is part of the trust issue. So if you're using the AI, your client may just not think that it's their spouse who's leading the discussion. It's coming from some purported to be neutral third party, meaning the AI. Um, and how do we keep our ethics? Well, we need to keep confidentiality. We need to keep in the loop and not turn this over. And then we have to look at how we charge people, because if it does, there's potential consequences. One of the concerns about AI is it'll wipe out many professions or reduce the need because um, it'll transform things and it'll do all the work. Well, sure. However, I know I was speaking to a now retired judge at the Court of Appeal who said in 2 years, this was 3 years ago, you wouldn't need any family law lawyers. I think he's wrong. Um, I hope more than one, no, more than one has retired, so it wasn't pointing to anyone in particular. Um, this, however, gives us a scope to, I think, do better and more efficient work. It gives us scope to maybe expand legal services beyond like something like half to two-thirds of people show up in court without a lawyer. Half of them can afford a lawyer. They don't think we're worth it. That's why they don't show up, and that's why they come to court without lawyers. So it's one of those things where use of AI products, understanding it's essential to understand the basics of how things works, from how prompts work to how GPTs and GEMs work. Essential to understand those things. Essential to understand how it can mechanize parts of your work. It should take away the things that are hard to do or the things that you don't like doing, the mundane stuff, and allow you to focus more on your client's needs and interests. So I am coming up, or I'm at my hour. I hope that was of some assistance. If you would like more information, please feel free to email me. I will try to, I'll have Shirley send out a couple of links that will give you some more information. And is there any questions? I mean, I'd be happy to entertain any questions at all, because this is a incredibly important, but also overwhelming area.
There's a couple comments in the chat, Brad. I can
Sure.
read them to you. Bernie Stefaniak had indicated he's talking about a program called Spellbook or
Yeah.
something like that. Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah. y- Not really. The difficulty with all of the specific, and I'm not a fan of this specific, I have something that will look after you. They're inevitably behind the market. Plus, I think when you're doing family law in Saskatchewan, it may be you need to design your own stuff. None of this is this hard, although it seems that way when you first open it up. None of these tools are that difficult to design or work with. So it may well work for some people, but there is no uh, product out there that's going to answer all your questions. They're all behind where the current technology is and will stay behind because they're always trying to catch up. And so it may be helpful. It's still important to use and look at these tools. Plus, not everybody may have them, which will tend to make it more difficult to collaborate.
Great. We have another one from Michelle McCrae. On the ethical side of using AI, can you speak to the environmental impact of AI and the major data centers?
Very briefly, there's one of them is water use. And for example, the provincial government, or there was just announced in Regina, a major data center coming, who's going to have, they say, zero water use. They'll take their initial water and then they'll essentially recycle it and cool it. So from that perspective, let me put it this way, and I'm not trying to be an apologist, but some of the discussions about the use of AI and electricity use, which can have an environmental impact, rather overstates where it's actually going to be. It will increase electrical demand, but not by a very significant margin. It's like 2 or 3% of the whole electric supply. It's not going to be 40%, and we're going to have to burn as much coal as possible and have overheated water supplies everywhere. That's overstating it. That was a concern, but the current best view would be you can ameliorate those issues. For example, the water use in Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan government says it's going towards a nuclear facility. Well, then there will be no carbon footprint off of that. You may not like nuclear, but that will address the issue. So it's out there, but it's not as big an issue. It is not the apocalyptic environmental problem that is made up by some. And in terms of learning about this stuff, I would watch a few YouTube videos. Everybody's trying to sell something to you. I would just start using things. I would get a paid model to start with, and then have it in terms of getting your clients' views. They won't care. They're on side. They're using AI anyway, and they'd be surprised that you're not. So consider using it. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about this. But I believe, because I'm quite passionate about collaboration and non-court remedies, not ways of doing with issues, this is where the courts in Saskatchewan are simply redundant. Some of these tools, if they were being used by a judge, for example, would create huge efficiencies in the court. We're a decade away from anything happening. So, grab the tool and use it. Free versions being incompatible with privacy concerns. Yes, Lana, I do. I don't know that they're real, but they're there, which is they will use your client's documents to train on if you use a free version, which means if you uploaded a client file information that is otherwise confidential, whatever that AI is, they will notionally keep it. I don't actually keep it, but they will use it to train. There's lots of talk that that's a breach of privacy. There's very, very, very little evidence that that's actually happened, but that I think that's where the major complaint comes in. There's going to use your client's documents to training, and somehow that's a privacy violation. Paid versions, they all guarantee they're not using it, and you can always say, I don't trust what Microsoft or Google says, but you're trusting them with everything else in your practice. So that's the other thing that I find interesting about privacy is my very first job was as a grocery packer when I packed people's food for them. And it was near the high school I went to. It's amazing how much you learn about people, about what food they eat. So that was a privacy violation. And then as soon as I became a lawyer and I started to look at other people's credit card and bank statements, as soon as you know how people spend their money, you know everything you want to know about somebody. So we want to keep everything private, but a lot of our information's out there. Any other
Thank
questions?
you so much.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think we've gotten there. Thank you so much, Brad, for that presentation. It's certainly given us a lot to think about. And I